Hey friends, happy Thursday. I hope you guys are doing well. Happy December. It is a new month and I'm excited. I'm going to get this shared over in my private Facebook group, which you are more than welcome to join me over there, the Mind Power Collective group. But I've got a big message. I have to make it quick because I have a call shortly. So let's get started. And this message, as many of my messages tend to be, was inspired by a client conversation that I was having. And if you don't know, one of the really cool things that I offer with my coaching is, in addition to the sessions, I also offer in between support. And basically, it's a video messaging app that allows you to have me in your back pocket, reach out, ask questions, that kind of thing. And so I was having a conversation with a client, and we were talking about some of the tough stuff that was kind of coming up. And a lot of people have had tough stuff coming up recently over the last month, maybe 2 months. And then as we head into the holiday season, this is one of those times that can be really triggering for so many people, whether you have family trauma or drama or things that kind of bring up our stuff, right, around the holidays. So this is one of those times that just a lot of people are dealing with stuff. And as I was having this conversation with a client, I wanted to, like, this message became so very clear, where we often feel like we're repeating history, right? So we live life, we have these experiences, and we feel the emotions, the triggers. We feel like we're sort of like snapped back into this past place, like this old relationship that we were in, or we feel like the situation feels very familiar in terms of things that we've, been through, loneliness or feeling abandoned, or, for some people it's lack, not feeling as abundant, health issues, like all of these things can often come up. And the thing that I wanted to remind my client specifically, because I know her and I've worked with her, but please know that this stands true for all of us. The thing that I wanted to remind her was that the situation may feel familiar. The feelings may be familiar. This tough time, whether it's financial or in your health or in relationships, may feel familiar because you've lived through something similar, but don't let that convince you that things haven't changed. Because while the feeling may be familiar, you have evolved. Does that make sense? So the thing that I was really trying to bring home, and to really, like, the point that I was really trying to make, is that regardless of how things may occur in our lives, we may feel these remnants of loss and pain and struggle and sadness and all of these emotions that can come up. But the thing that you have to remember is that while the situation may feel familiar, it may feel like you're repeating history. It may feel like you are back where you were and like you haven't made any progress. Growth is a spiral staircase, which means these triggers, these lessons are going to be familiar, but you are different. You are not the same person who hit that bump in the road 5 years ago. You are not the same person who hit that struggle point 2 years ago. You're not the same. And I think one of the challenges in terms of mindset and energy is that we convince ourselves that because this challenge is here, that somehow we're failing. We're not doing the right work. We're doing the wrong thing. We're wrong. We're not enough, right? But the thing that I had to keep coming back to, and it felt so like this message was so powerful as it was coming up. And when I came on, decided that I wanted to jump in here and talk to you, I knew that it was something that you guys needed to hear because it's true for you too. I don't know you personally, I don't know your story, but I know that you're not the same person. Whether we like it or not, day after day, month after month, year after year, we are changing. And so dealing with this circumstance and these feelings and this tough time today has a very different impact on your life than it did 2 years ago or 5 years ago, right? And when you understand that, here's what happens. Here's the beauty of this. for you. Here's the beauty of this message that I really want you to listen and hold on to, is that while you are experiencing this familiar situation, right? You are different and you have an opportunity to see this situation differently, to respond to it in a new way. That is the gift that you have because you are now different, right? You're the same person, like, you're the same person. I'm still Amisha, but I'm a different version of myself. So the challenges, the struggles that feel very reminiscent of the past, like I have some of the very same struggles, the same triggers that I had back in the day when I started this work. I have a lot of those same triggers, but I respond to them in a different way. I see them in a different way. I react differently because I have learned to grow through those moments. Those things may shake me a little bit, but they don't keep me down because I am now different. I have evolved and I'm not special. It's the same thing for you. So as I was chatting with this client, I was reminding her, like, we've been working together and she has grown so much. Like, when I tell you I am proud of my clients, there's so much pride in this work, not because of me, but because of the work they are doing. And I have this very unique sort of viewpoint to be able to see where they started and where they are now. Right. And so I was reflecting back to her. And that's one of the benefits of coaching, is that I was able to reflect back to her and say, listen, this may feel very reminiscent of that moment. This may feel like you're repeating history, but you are not the same person. Remember that this happened and you did this and you did this. And this is just in the last 6 months, right? What about the last year or the last year and a half? You have changed, you have evolved, you have expanded. And you know what she did right after that message? And it's not because of my message, but because of, she was able to talk about some of these things and really, this whole coaching interaction. She snapped out of it. She snapped out of it. She was able to get up and move forward with what she was moving through. And that is really the benefit of having that different perspective, having that person, whether it's a coach or a friend or a therapist or whomever, like in your corner, to remind you that you're not the same, because as human beings, we forget. Our brains are hardwired to go back to what we know. So when you're doing this work and you're trying to evolve and you're working on getting better and you're working towards your goals and your intentions, when those moments hit and we feel triggered by the holidays, or we have a moment with our finances, or this body image thing comes up, or relationship stuff or career stuff, when those things happen, they bring up all of the feelings of all of the times that situation happened in a similar way. And what it does is it causes us, like, mentally, we actually go back through our past. We remember, oh, and then I did this, and then this thing happened, and then this thing happened. And so we're living in this old place. And sometimes what you need is someone to, like, lasso you and pull you back to reality, this current moment, to remind you who you are. Because the emotions are real. The situation you're dealing with, the emotions that are coming up, the triggers that are coming up, they are real. And I'm not asking you to avoid them or to ignore them. But I am asking you to remind yourself of who you are today. You're not the same person that you were last week. This job challenge, this business situation, this interpersonal problem or challenge that you're dealing with a coworker or financial thing, none of this is exactly the same, because change is always happening. And so every single moment that you hit this bump in the road, or this moment that feels like you haven't made any progress, I want to remind you is you are different. You are very, very different. And it's a really, really important thing to remember, because I don't think that we necessarily give ourselves the credit that we deserve. We don't always see ourselves in the most true light, right? Like, we often assume that we haven't grown at all. And so having someone reflect back to you, a confidant, a coach, a mentor, whomever, to be able to come back to you and say, listen, that thing feels very real, but let me remind you about this and this and this and this. And these are some of the exercises that, I talk about quite often. I've talked about this writing a letter to yourself. There is a value in that. When you hit a bump in the road, if you have a letter, sounds silly, but it's really powerful. If you have a letter that you've written to yourself, so you're in this very growth, like expanded place, and you write a letter to the version of you who's struggling, and you read that letter when you're struggling, I promise you're going to have a different perspective. You're going to have an instant perspective shift in that moment because you're able to remember the things that you've done, the places that you've moved through, right? You'll be able to recognize that. And, whether it's your own words, I think it's more powerful when it's your own words, whether it's your own words or if it's, like I said, a mentor, a therapist, a coach, or whomever, to remind you of that, there's power there. So I just wanted to come in here because I know that there are a lot of people, especially around this time of year, but we all have, life happens. So we all have these moments where these things are triggered within us. And I just want to remind you that the situation may feel familiar, but you're not repeating history unless you continue to respond the same way. You are a different person. You have evolved, you have learned life lessons, you have strategies, you have tools. And if you don't have those things, or if you feel like you need more, know that there are opportunities to support you through that, right? There are some things that you can do to get that support. And, whether it's working with a coach like myself or some other thing, just know that that is available for you. Okay. So that is my message for you today. I hope it's helpful. And if it is helpful, or if it's something that you think someone, in your life needs to hear, or it would be helpful for someone else to hear, feel free to tag them below or send this, forward it to them. I'd love to have you share this message. And I also want to provide this invitation. I am always, available to have a chat with you if you're interested in coaching for sure on a one-on-one basis. But these kinds of tips and tools, the strategies like writing the letter to yourself, or some of the other things that I assign clients, I do this and I talk about this all the time, but I have a little special something for the end of the year, and I'm only inviting specific people, right? Number one, people I think that are interested in it, but also people in my community. And it's an invite only thing. So it's a year end sort of workshop deal. If that's something that you might be interested in, it's, training, information. I don't want to give it all away. But just different things like this, like the writing the letter, right? To help you close out the year and start anew. If that's something that you'd be interested in, or you're interested in one-on-one coaching to kind of take this to the next level for yourself, to change your life for the better, like really, really change your life for the better in 2022, I'd love for you to send me a message or post a comment below. I'd love to have a chat with you and invite you to join me in this if it feels like a good fit. But I just want you to know you're different. Life is different, right? We are changing and evolving all the time. So even though the situations may feel the same, remember that you have changed and learned, and you're learning all along the way. So go back to those lessons. Remember that you get to respond differently and change that situation. Okay? All right, guys. So I hope this is helpful. Again, if you're interested in, working with me as a coach, feel free to jump onto my website, check everything out. If you are interested in that little secret thing that I'm doing at the end of the year, feel free to reach out as well. But in the meantime, share this with someone who may need it, right? Save this. Post a comment below if you have questions or anything like that. So let me know if you have any questions. Let me know, if you need anything. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. All right. Bye, guys.